Hey, what is going on, everybody? In today's video, I feel like we're going to be doing a new series here, but I want to add to this whole don't build them thing that I've been doing lately, because I keep seeing threads on Reddit and elsewhere about the validity of Black Order, and I feel like people are giving bad advice on this, and maybe this really depends on what point in the game you're at, but they just really aren't worth building anymore, and it's a year too late. My thoughts on Ebony Maw particularly have been made quite clear in the past in other videos, but I feel this needs mentioning again, but in this case it'll be the full Black Order that we're going to be discussing today, including Thanos, and I'll try my best to tell you why I don't think they're worth building anymore. Now, like a lot of my videos, this is aimed towards an early and mid-game audience, which I define as basically anything Dark Dimension 3 and prior. Anyone who's like Dark Dimension 4+, most likely have these guys built anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant to talk about. But strap in tight for this bumpy ride, because I know people aren't going to like what I have to say. Okay, so how this is going to work is we're going to go and start from the bottom of the Black Order roster, in my opinion, it's from the least useful to the more useful, but also talk about why as a whole you no longer need to do this. We'll also be giving an honorable mention to Thanos. Unfortunately, he's not Black Order tagged, but as soon as I unfilter this, he'll be at the top of my list because I do have him. He is actually my second strongest character in my roster, but I do want to talk about why. For a lot of players, it's just not worth building anymore. So we're going to start this off with Corvus Glaive at the bottom, in my opinion. Now, like I said, I do have them all really high. This is actually my second highest powered team that I have in the game. Actually, I think it is the most. I think it's actually higher than my Infinity Watch because I don't have Adam Warlock at a very high star level right now. But Corvus Glaive, and I do have them all maxed. All T4s are maxed, but why am I not recommending this now? So Corvus Glaive, you can actually get him pretty early on in the game. He is available in the Arena store for 500 credits, but standalone as a character, not very good. You know, he does have the villain Cosmic Brawler tags, but a lot of his synergy requires Proxima and for the larger team. So he is the sort of the damage dealer. His passive does give +% damage to the rest of the team, and quite a bit, plus 20% and 30% with the T4s, which is quite nice. And, you know, as far as the Black Order was, you know, this was early to mid 2020, you know, they were still a very solid team. It's just unfortunately that this game has kind of power crept to the point where if you're not 6 to 9 months, if you're older than 6 to 9 months, it just really probably isn't worth it. Now, his kit, again, requires Proxima, so you're not going to want to use Corvus standalone, and a lot of his passive also helps the rest of the team. He's a very hard hitter, but that's about kind of all he is. He's very damage based, and so he doesn't provide a lot of utility outside of that, which is why I think he is kind of the worst member, if I have to say, standalone. Although obviously in the whole team you're not going to want to separate any of them, which makes this team very challenging to build now, because you can't just build, with the exception of Ebony Maw, which we'll talk about in more detail, you can't just build one character. If you're building Black Order, you kind of need to build all 5 of them, including Thanos, otherwise it just doesn't make sense. So second on the list, we're actually going to talk about Cull Obsidian. Now, he's the tank of the group. He's been more recently added to the War Store. Is he? No, okay, he is in the War Store. Of course, if they're not in at the time, it doesn't actually show up here when you click the Find button. But believe me, he is in the War Store. He was added very, very recently to the War Store. He was changed from Premium Orb 2% exclusive into the War Store to farm. But realistically, it just comes too late. Now, when a character becomes Premium Orb exclusive, that kind of also signals that their usefulness has come to an end. The more recent one addition was Anti-Venom, which unfortunately, even though he is still used, I suspect for newer and mid-game players is not a character that you're going to want to build anymore because of the rarity of the shards and whether or not you'll even unlock them. Cull Obsidian is a 100 shard unlock anyways. I guess now with the War Sword it's easier, but beforehand just really didn't make a lot of sense to go for him. Now, being a standalone tank, he's okay, but he's very slow, and again, benefits from having the rest of the team. His payback, his passive, you know, he swings back whenever an enemy attacks an ally Thanos or Ebony Maw, so if you don't have them on the field, then it almost makes not a lot of sense. He does spawn with the Power Stone and defense up for 2 turns, so hey, that's not too bad. And again, he can taunt and get defense up and clear buffs and things like that. He has a max health passive, so that helps the rest of the team. But this whole team of Black Order, really, you just need all of them them or nothing. And unfortunately, I just don't think it is worth building them at this point in time. And now I've said this a couple of times here. It's just that realistically, where you can use them, there's only one major place in the game where you can use them, and that's in Doom War. There's a particular section, Doom War 2.7 to 2.9, which is to farm Proxima, ironically enough. So we're going to talk about Proxima third. So she is, I would say, the more useful member standalone, but because she's skill, and we've more recently had the Secret Avengers skill patch, I think that kind of option is no longer there. So I would rather, you know, people put their skill gear into characters like Cap Sam, into Sharon Carter, then Proxima Midnight now. There's tons of other cosmic options in the game, such as Kess Watch and Silver Surfer, and these other characters that you don't really need any of these Black Order members standalone for cosmic-related reasons. Now, to find her, like I said, she is made farmable in this Doom War section 2.7 to 2.9. I might have to go there manually, but it does include the Black Order as characters that you can use for that level. So that's a bit of a separate conversation. We're gonna get there after we talk about the rest of the team, because I think that's kind of important. And as far as a character goes, though, Proxima Midnight was very, very useful for her control abilities. Some people even took her standalone for Dark Dimension 3 and 4 Cosmic, but I just don't think that makes a lot of sense now with the release of Kestrel, with the release of Infinity Watch. There's tons of amazing options now. Even Gamora and Nebula standalone as a duo is significantly more powerful, so that makes a lot more sense. Her Star Throw, which did offense down for 2 turns, this was really nice, again, for the Dark Dimension modes. Her Last Light, her ultimate, was a stun and a slow. Also really nice, because stun is a great skill, reduces speed bar by 50%. This was very helpful in Dark Dimension. It's just, you know, she's being power crept, she's kind of squishy, and again, you know, those Kestrel, Kess Watch, Infinity Watch combos are just way, way better now. And if you happen to have missed them, then, well, I think that by the time you get to the point of needing them, that they will be farmable at some point. Probably I don't know why I said Secret Avengers. But, you know, it's realistic that within 6 months you'll get some of these characters farmable. And so if you did miss some of these newer characters, you're probably not in the point where you need Proxima anyways. And again, her farm is quite late, 2.7 to 2.9. Doom War. So, fourthly, I feel that Ebony Maw is going to take a little bit more time to talk about. So, we're going to talk about Thanos first before we get back to Ebony Maw. And now, Thanos as a character. Now, he's not Black Order tagged, but obviously he requires all 4 of the other Black Order members in order to go into his empowered form. So, where am I using Thanos now in my main account? I'm using him in Doom Raid barely. I don't even think I use him. I think I replaced him with Adam Warlock. So if you don't have Adam Warlock, he is usable. But what I mean by this is he's usable now. We have a Mystic patch coming up in the next week, which includes Deathpool, who's just crazy good, and Cloak and Dagger, who's going to come out alongside them. So realistically, a lot of characters, a lot of Mystic characters for the Doom Raid purposes are going to get dumped to the wayside over these newer characters who just have power creep out the wazoo. And even though I have him at 163k in Doom Raid, it's just not, it doesn't equate, it doesn't translate to something really that great. You know, his damage, he's got a lot of hit points, but realistically that doesn't help much in Doom Raid. You need more control, you need buffs, debuffs, things like that. His ultimate, you know, as regular Thanos, does not do a ton of damage, and he just doesn't hold up despite having that 163k power. Now, if he was empowered permanently, you know, without the need of the rest of the team. This is like what I talk about Gamora's empowerment form. I feel like that was just above and beyond what should have happened for empowered forms. It's like, can you think of Thanos, you know, being empowered without needing the rest of the Black Order? That would mean that he would be good, that he would be valid still now, and I would continue to use him. If I could use this form in Doom Raid, that would be beyond amazing because, you know, it's really powerful. But he's not, so unfortunately, because I require the rest of the other team, it just doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. And it's sad because he is the strongest character in my roster, but sadly, even I have to dump him because I just don't think he's gonna hold. And so, beyond that, he just doesn't have a lot of places that you can be used in. The Cosmic, Villain, and Mystic campaigns, not really all that important for new and mid-game players, not worth building. You know, he doesn't have any tags, any real tags yet. So, unless this comes back at a later time, and we'll have to talk about that later, because the way the game shifts, basically every 3 months, I would say, something dramatic changes in the game to the point where it has to be talked about again. But as we're sitting now, Thanos just doesn't have enough tags to make him relevant anymore, and in the Mystic Doom Raid sections, he's going to get kicked out very, very soon. So yeah, not a character that you're going to want to invest in as heavily as I did when I did it. But I don't regret it, because a year ago, you know, he was top dog, and, you know, he was a great character to have. Unfortunately, just like some of the other characters when we discussed Minerva and Hela a couple of days ago, you know, this is starting to happen with them as well. So, into the dustbin with you, Thanos, unfortunately. But let's talk about Ebony Maw, and we need to get back to the Black Order filter here. Actually, he's just down here, so I'm just going to click on him. Ebony Maw. So this is going to be the most important part of the video, I think, because this is probably the most contentious, I would say. So Ebony Maw is a legendary character. Now, how do you unlock Ebony Maw? You need to have Black Bolt and 4 other Inhumans at the 5-star level. So it has to be Black Bolt and then 4 other Inhumans out of the choice. Most people are doing Yo-Yo now because she's available in the raid store, and not Karnak, who's in the Nexus 8-6. But that's another conversation. So Ebony Maw requires the investment of 10 characters to get him. You need to get as Guardians up to 5-star and to a decent gear level at which you can actually unlock Black Bolt and do the level. And then you need to do Black Bolt and 4 other Inhumans to unlock Ebony Maw. So that's 10, like, am I on the screen? 10 characters that you need to invest in just to unlock Ebony Maw. And is it worth it, both in the levels, the gold, the gear, everything that you're putting into these characters to get one single character? And I still have to say it's not worth it. Now, I made a video a couple of weeks ago, a bit of a contentious one. It was called Legendaries Don't Build Them. Black Bolt and Ebony Maw were across the screen, and I just can't convince anyone to do this now, because it's just not worth it. It's not worth chasing those 10 characters to get Ebony Maw. If we're talking about the Black Order team as a whole, then we're talking about 15 characters. We're talking about the 10 to get Ebony Maw, and then Ebony Maw plus the rest of the Black Order team. If we're talking about the full team, that's a 15 character investment for one team. It just isn't worth it. It's just mind-boggling, mind-blowing, you know, how much resources you would have to invest and dump into these characters in order just to get him. But let's talk about where he's commonly used and why you don't really need him. So we'll talk about the obvious endgame modes, and that is, you know, and again, this video isn't aimed towards the people who already have him. It's aimed towards the people who, you know, are coming up the way, that are in the mid game, who are unsure about this, and I'm trying to convince you guys that this isn't needed anymore and not worth it. So Ebony Maw can be used in the Dark Dimension Cosmic stages, and Dark Dimension 3 Cosmic specifically, but Dark Dimension 4 as a legendary character, there is a separate legendary lane. So the question is, if you don't use him in the legendary lane, then what other characters can you use? So I would normally recommend the newest characters possible. So that would be Doc Ock, Jubilee, Adam Warlock where possible. His second time around will be coming up pretty soon. And a 4th character that you do need. However, this could be Phoenix. This could be Ebony Maw. You know, I just don't really think it's worth it. And by the time, if I'm talking to some mid-game players right now in this video, by the time they get to the point of needing Dark Dimension 4 Legendary, which is the last lane of Dark Dimension 4, there is going to be another Legendary out at that point in time. It takes a while. Don't forget how long it takes to level up in this game. My baby account is level 65. I believe it took me about a month just to get from 60 to 65. By the time I get to level 80 and I'm even thinking about Dark Dimension 4, it's going to be 3 to 4 months down the line. I'm going to have Adam Warlock probably, and then who knows if the next Legendaries come down the line, which kind of dumps Ebony Maw's necessity for the Legendary lane. So a lot of people get hung up on this need for legendary characters in Dark Dimension 4. Don't, because it's not that important, because by the time you get there, he's not going to be important anymore. Now, one of the other contentious spots about where the Black Order is usable as a whole, and why, you know, people say that he's still worth bringing up and the team's worth bringing up, there's 2 places particularly. One that I hate that people bring up, and one that, you know, people think they need him. So it's in Do More, and I talked about this earlier when I was talking about Proxima. And this is in Chapter 2. This is 2.7 to 2.9. This is, ironically, again, for the Proxima Midnight Unlock node. Now, your choices, Black Order, Hydra, or Power Armor. Now, I will say, characters like Red Skull and Baron Zemo, in my opinion, are more worth building than the Black Order, because, again, the Black Order in order to get Ebony Maw unlocked, requires a vast amount of investment in other characters in order to do that. So why invest in potentially 10 other characters when you could invest in just a handful of other characters and get through this without it? I don't even think that 3-starring this node is all that important. Even just getting a 1-star is perfectly fine, as long as as you get to do more Chapter 3, which is way more important to get to Yellow Jacket and Multiple Man. So, you know, don't be concerned about getting a 3-star on this section because it's not important. You just need to clear it just to make sure that you get to Chapter 3 because Proxima, again, not that important. So in terms of the characters that you need for this, let's talk about that. Because some people ask me, well, what do you suggest instead? So, if you look at what I have, obviously it's going to suggest Black Order because that's my highest characters. But characters like Baron Zemo, Red Skull, OG Falcon, believe it or not, because of his turn bar, you know, and as a power armor member, but specifically because of the special, I actually kind of think that there might be space for him later down the line, even though we have Cap Sam. And then from there, ironically, I would actually take your highest Red Star Hydra minion. Characters like Grenadier, who actually does quite well alongside Baron Zemo, in that they actually do have synergy together. And either Hydra Scientist to keep you alive, Hydra Sniper for the buffs, or Hydra Rifle Trooper. Actually, I don't know if I'd really recommend Rifle Trooper necessarily. I would say maybe Hydra Armored Guard, because as long as you have Red Skull on the field, any of the Hydra minions, they actually come back and they actually revive up to 8 times in a match. So you could have Armored Guard consistently taunt and then he'll just get revived and it doesn't matter. So if you are looking for that 3-star, you could do that. If you really don't want to level up Falcon, then you could do another Hydra minion. And I'm telling you that you'll get more use out of this team than you will out of having to invest in 10 characters to get Ebony Maw unlocked and then investing in the rest of the team for the Black Order in order to get through this level. Because you only need to get to 1 star to get to Chapter 3. Now, the other part of places where people talk about using the Black Order is Alliance War. Now, I'm not going to click on this because there's nothing to show. Black Order is a very strong team. I'm not going to lie. They are. They're probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in the game in terms of being able to take out other highly meta teams. The point is that I don't put a lot of stock in War. And if your argument as to why a character is good or why a team is good is for Alliance War, then please stop, because you're not going to win me over in this argument, because nobody should be building characters specifically for War, and if this is your main argument, then you've already lost. And I think that people need to understand that investing in characters specifically for War is just not something that you need to do. I have, you know, talked time and time again for heavy followers of my channel. They'll know I don't put a lot of stock into Alliance War, and you shouldn't be dumping your extra resources into War characters because there's plenty of other places that you could do it rather than here. So please, don't do Black Order if your reason is for War. Please don't do it if it's for Doom 27-29. That's kind of a bit of a fallacy. There's other ways you can get around it. In my opinion, characters like Baron Zemo and Red Skull are actually more worth it than some of these other characters, so I think they're actually still worth building. And once again, for the Hydra characters, you don't need to dump you don't need to dump resources into 10 other characters to get Ebony Maw unlocked. Okay. So I hope I made some of this clear. Let me know if there is still some confusion or some things you want me to clear up in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to have that conversation. The point of this whole video is basically, please do not use all of your hard-earned resources for like 10 to 15 characters that you need to get Black Order online, to get Ebony Maw unlocked, and to get the rest of the team up. I think by the time you even do this, other characters will be out that will make them obsolete, and so even if you think that they are decent now, they're not going to be decent later. They're old characters, they're kind of old news, they're going to get binned pretty soon, if they haven't already, which they kind of have. But a person like myself, you know, I'm a veteran player, I have them unlocked, of course, and I have them geared up because they were meta at the time, but they aren't now. So please, 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 don't convince yourself, and don't let other people convince you that you need them, because you don't. And that's the end of this video, guys, and let me know in the comments down below what you think. Of course, criticism or otherwise, I'll take that. And until next time, stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you all later. Almost screwed that up. Boilon signing out.